the legal system, whether in India or internationally, is also something that I find difficult to comprehend at times, and think some things are quite wrong with it. If we talk about India, everybody has, probably many people of, not if everybody, if not everybody, then most people are aware of the famous uh, lines of Tarikh pe Tarikh in the film Damini by Sunny Deol. Courts giving the next date for the hearing and keep on doing it. Very famous. But then the question is, why don't they change it? Why are the judges so eager to give the next date for the hearing? Why don't they put their foot down and say no, no more extensions or no more next dates and finish it off? Why? They don't want to hear the case? They don't have time? Or is there bribes? Are they being bribed to give the next hearing date for the next hearing? What is it? I don't understand. We all know that there is this phenomenon, date upon date upon date, next date for the hearing. But the simple question is, why do they continue doing that? What is the reason for easily giving the next date for the hearing? Why don't the judges put their foot down and say no, no more dates? So that's a riddle, enigma, puzzle, whatever you want to call it. I have also heard that we have this criminal procedure code and Indian penal code, which is quite complicated and long and all that and tedious, and it has not been reformed at all. And it needs serious reform. Some it was made long ago. These things were made long ago. Many of these things can be simplified and done away with, but nobody has really looked at that. I think there was some talk earlier in the past, but nothing has been done about it. So these old laws, Criminal Procedure Code and Act and Indian Penal Code and all the various sections, made long ago, but no changes, no reforms, no simplification, no streamlining. Why not? We don't have enough judges, so why don't they recruit more? Now, again, there is a question in India about who decides that. There is this judiciary which is independent from the government, and now they seem to be having some sort of a tussle. But even when there were no tussles, why weren't they recruiting judges, more judges? And who decides that? Maybe the judges take the decision of appointing other judges, but the salaries are paid by the government. So again, it's a complex thing, and doesn't seem to be going fast enough, setting up more courts. And you could even have night shift for the courts. I mean, to speed things along, because the pendency of cases, and there are so many cases pending, we keep hearing about this. So I think justice should run round the clock, morning as well as night. And in many government services and departments, you should start night shifts. Like, if factories can run in night shifts, why can't the government work in day shift and night shift? Maybe it can be thought about. Create more jobs, speed things along, you know. So I think somebody should look at that. And we don't have enough judges. Everybody knows that, compared to the advanced countries. So that's a problem. And in India, funnily, I think lawyers, when you ask them what is the law, they don't tell you the law. They say, what do you want? What do you want to do? What is it that you desire? So rather, if I want to know if something is legal, whether something is legal or illegal, and if I try to get a legal opinion, they don't give you straight answers, or they say, how do you want it? What is it that you desire out of it? They don't simply tell you the law. So the whole thing is quite devious, twisted. And we have this whole question of interpretation of laws. Now, why do you need laws which need to be interpreted? Why can't they be made simple enough so that you don't need any interpretation? You have laws, and then they are interpreted differently. And there are different interpretations, and there is a lot of fight about that. So the question is, why can't when you are drafting the laws, take care that the interpretation is not an issue. It can be interpreted simply. Yes, of course, I understand that if you make a law very rigid, then when there is no chance of interpreting it, then it might become very restrictive. So is that like in a management discussion, you have flexible policies, so you want to make flexible laws which can be interpreted the way you want. You don't want rigidity. So if you have rigidity, there is a problem, and then if the law is too rigid, then changing the law becomes difficult. So you want to make it flexible, but when you are making it too flexible, then it is not clear, and then you have to interpret it. So how do you interpret it? So this is a dilemma. But have fewer laws maybe, and think about this interpretation business, because I am not really very clear about why there is a lot of issue about interpreting the law. The law says something, but the interpretation has to be done by the court and the judge and all that, and it's not clear enough. So there is a lot of confusion around that. The other thing I think is, I don't know, I feel that generally in India, the legal process takes too long, and everybody knows this. And getting anybody convicted is very difficult. And most of the times that doesn't happen. And you have so many under trial people who are in jail, though they are not convicted, and the trial and the case is going on. That is also a huge problem. Whereas probably in the Western countries, the legal system works pretty quickly, and it disposes of cases, and people are convicted and they go to jail and all that. In India, sending people to jail is a very complex thing. So I don't know whether it is this feeling that, let 1,000, doesn't matter if 1,000 criminals go free, but not even one innocent person should suffer. Is that our thinking? And in the Western countries, they say that somebody has to go to prison. Find the most possible, most likely suspect and put him in jail. Somebody has to pay the price for the crime. Whereas we don't believe in making that happen. We say let 1,000 criminals go free, but we can't risk putting even one innocent man in jail. So our system works in a different way, their system works in a different way, and that's why we are unable to send people to jail. There is never any conviction. Is that the case? I don't understand. Because in our case, convicting people, actually handing out a sentence guilty and then putting him in jail doesn't really happen. Very rarely would you see that happen. Case goes on and on. The guy might even be in jail without or bail or whatever, or an under trial person still in jail because the case has not been disposed of. So he might spend years in jail even without being convicted. So it's a very funny and crazy sort of a thing. We don't have the jury system. They have juries in US and UK where the judge the verdict is given by the jury, 11 members drawn from the public. Now, whether in India we don't follow that, US, UK, they follow that. Is it worth following or not? I am not too sure about it, but there are differences. So there are differences the way the legal system works in other cases. So I think one needs to learn and see different legal systems in different countries and make necessary changes so that our system can do something, because our system needs some serious fixes. Everybody is aware, and there are two kinds of statements: justice delayed is justice denied. So justice should work fast, and then somebody has opposed and said justice hurried is justice buried. So if you rush things, then you again make a mistake. So you have to have a fine balance. Again, funny. As far as the Western system goes, I think they work fast. People do go to jail, and it's fast. So some things do make sense there. But then they have their own weird things, like, again, whether good, bad, ugly, I do not know. For example, a Supreme Court judge in US, the US Supreme Court, they never retire. He can go on till he dies. He can be 100 years old and still be a judge. Whereas in India, we have seen judges who maybe spend, he's the Chief Justice of India for 15 days and he has to go out. So we have this extremely ridiculously short tenures. Whereas in the US, once the judge becomes a Supreme Court judge of the United States, Federal Supreme Court, National Court, then he never retires and he can spend 50 years in that job. So that's a very funny way of doing things, but they are doing that. Everything that they are doing is not necessarily good, but some of the things that they are doing, because it seems to be working as far as justice happens. I mean, things do happen. I mean, people do go to jail and it works fast, at least faster than us, our system. So we need to study that. There are some crazy things, of course. They have their own ways that, there is a lot of attorney-client privilege, maybe that is here also. So even the lawyer knows that his client is guilty, the defense lawyer, but he can't reveal it and he will defend the guilty party. And when the police or the investigative agencies obtain some proof, actual proof, truthful proof, evidence, but if they have done it in some illegal manner without proper sanctions and authorities, then that's called fruit of the poison tree and it is not admissible in court. So what is admissible, what is inadmissible is also very funny. So US, sometimes I think they have this weird system of, instead of saying that, look, let us have a neutral, unbiased investigator whose job is just to find out the truth. A crime has occurred and let there be a party who is neither interested in defending or prosecuting. His job is just to, whether it is the police or whatever you call it, or the court or somebody from the legal system, this agency's job is just to find out the truth without fear or favor and fact finding, and based on that you give your verdict. But here you have these two opposite sides. You have a defense. Everybody has a right to defense, whether he's guilty or not guilty doesn't really matter, and they can lie and cheat and do whatever they can. And then there is a prosecutor and he is hell-bent on seeing to it that the guy goes to jail. And these two sides fight like mad with each other. And they are elected in US. The prosecutions also have election. Judges are elected. There is election for judges. There is election for prosecuting counsel and attorneys, which is a bit different. And there is a defense guy. So the prosecutor's job is to improve his conviction rate. So he is focused completely on sending somebody to jail and proving that the guy is guilty. And the defense guy is a private lawyer, probably. There are public defenders in some cases where that guy can't afford it. But then, there is a criminal. He's clearly a criminal. He has stole, so maybe his defense lawyer knows. But they can do whatever they will to see to it that he goes free. So there are two sides, not focused on truth but on winning. And that kind of a crazy thing where you probably create a lot of employment opportunities for lawyers, I guess. But is it the right ideal system? It's not about finding the truth, but winning and two sides competing. It's like a game show sort of a thing. And one guy is hell-bent on proving the other guy guilty. One guy is hell-bent on proving his client innocent. And they can do all sorts of tricks within law, of course, but some of them the law doesn't even know about it. And I know that my guy is guilty, but I still have to defend him, So why? I mean, the guilty should be punished. This idea of the guilty should have a chance to defend themselves is fine. But then what about truth and facts? I mean, the guilty should have where clemency is called for, or one needs to be compassionate and first time offenders and maybe look at it liberally and with compassion is fine. But the guilty guy is not guilty because he's proven, the other side is unable to prove him guilty, so he goes away scot free, and the system doesn't care. So it's not about finding the truth and punishing the guilty. It's about winning and losing and competing and like a game show. This is something that I don't understand why the justice system has to work like that. I can understand the need for defense, a criminal, but then the point is, if a first thing is finding out whether the crime has been committed and who's the criminal, then maybe decide on what sentence to give and whether one should be liberal or not. Instead of that, you can commit a crime and get away with it because you have a right to this thing, and you have more money, and your lawyers are smart, and because of trial laws and whatnot, you are able to get away with it because the other side is somehow unable to prove. The procedure is so complicated, certain things are inadmissible in court and whatnot. So that's that doesn't seem to make sense. It is not about finding out the truth and establishing whether somebody is guilty or not, but it's like a game show with two sides and competing and winning and losing. That doesn't really make too much sense to me. Even in the case that is in the case of US, I'm talking about. That's a country of lawyers, one should say. So while they have this some good things, some of the things they do are also sometimes complicated, and I don't understand it. I'm not an expert, of course. I'm not a student of law or something, but just as somebody who reads about stuff and thinks about stuff, these are some basic fundamental questions that I feel like asking. Thank you.